Hey, Java friends. It's your buddy Matt coming at you with another exciting video here. Today, we are going to configure virtual hosting using a custom domain within our Amazon EC2 instance running Tomcat 7 or newer. And if we have a CI/CD pipeline set up already, we will update it accordingly so that it can still work. Virtual hosting. A lot of us have EC2 instances potentially running, and there's an elastic IP address associated with it. And we type this in. In theory, that should take me somewhere, right? Oh, that's right now. I have it configured to port 80 instead of port 8080, so there's my manager app for the world to see. If I want to show off my indie project, I've got this rocking, and this is a very bare bones JSP, but it is a JSP nevertheless. So this is what I have for a publicly facing link, and it'll work. It's it's definitely better than not having a publicly facing link at all. But at the same time, maybe some of you would like something along the lines of, mycustomdomain.com. And when you type that in, your indie project shows up. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, good news. There's a way to make that happen. My indie project is called Salon Solutions, so I'm going to try to find a custom domain right now that is salon related. And, maybe you can find something that is along the lines of whatever your indie project's about. I've already set this up for my team project Freeway Forecast. So just to give you an idea, my team project is also running off of this very same Amazon EC2 instance. So, good news. A single Amazon EC2 instance can host multiple websites. And I will kind of show you how to do that. That's what virtual hosting is all about. So we'll get into that in just a second, but it's called Freeway Forecasts. And if I type that into my address bar here, freewayforecast.com, here's our very basic JSP that we have. And here are my awesome team members. And, we're working diligently on on making this into a very useful app. And in fact, it's not only freewayforecast.com that I got to work, but also freewayforecast.com that I got to work and direct to the same publicly facing index JSP in the Freeway Forecast project. Also, if I put www in front of it, same deal. It will continue to point to that same page, even with that www alias in front of it. So how does all of that work? I will get right into it here. So let's kind of just go down the line and look at our steps. First of all, we got to purchase a custom domain name. And I will say with a caveat here, I believe there is a way to acquire custom domain names for free. I am just not skilled on how to do that yet. So if anybody knows how to get custom domain names for free, please add a comment below and fill us in. I have heard through the grapevine that there are ways, or at least ways to get custom domain names that are a lot less expensive than what pricing you might find on some of the big sites. I have a GoDaddy account. I use it frequently. I've used it for some of the domain names that I've shown you already. I use it just because it's convenient, and sometimes I can find a decent coupon code online, but it's not cheap. I have played around with, and I will do this right now, I've played around with Amazon AWS Route 53, which is kind of their registrar, their version of GoDaddy. So let's jump into that for a second and see if I can find a custom domain name that's going to be suitable. So you can see I've already purchased one custom domain name through them, freewayforecast.com. It says, I can register another domain if I choose. So let's see what we might find for salonsolutions.com. Let's see if anything's available. Nothing's coming up for salonsolutions.com, but I do see mysalonsolutions.com. I kind of like that one. There's a whole bunch of options here. But this one's jumping out at me. That mysalonsolutions.com kind of rolls right off the tongue. So, you know, 12 bucks, I mean, for a year, I would imagine there are cheaper ways to do this, but again, for the sake of convenience, Amazon's offering it right here. I'm going to just go for it, and, you know, it is what it is. Again, please, if anybody has feedback on how to make this process a little less expensive, I'm all ears. So here we go. We've got it added to our cart here. We're going to continue. And I might end up blurring a bunch of this out, but anyway, I'm going to enable some privacy protection and continue. And do I want to automatically renew? Yeah, sure, why not? And I have read the terms and conditions, and my order is submitted successfully. So it's being processed. I have a cart on file with Amazon, so they're going to debit my account. And it says, you know, domain registration might take up to 3 days to complete. So we'll see if I can use it anytime soon. I've heard before, sometimes, yeah, it does take like 24 to 48 hours and maybe even a little longer to propagate. So we'll see how soon that goes through. Pending requests, so it's in the queue. In the meantime, we know we have it, I think. Hopefully we have it. So I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to start diving in a little deeper here. While we're waiting on that, let's get a terminal window open, and we're going to SSH into our EC2 instance. I'm in the directory that I need to be in that has my .pem key to make that happen. So I'm going to pull that up, and there's my EC2 instance. Now I need to start modifying some things, some files, so that my EC2 instance knows when traffic from mysalonsolutions.com comes in, where does it go? I mean, how does it know what pages to serve that user? So we're not going to worry about that. This is all Amazon stuff right now. Step 2, we'll come back to that. We logged into our EC2 instance. We are going to become a root user because we got to modify some system files. So let's do that. As you can see, we're not root user right now. In order to become a root user, you're going to go sudo -i, and now you can see my access level has changed. I am a root user, and I'm going to make sure that I'm all the way up at the top of my directories. I think I am. Yep. Okay. So we're going to go into the hosts file, which is this file right here. Root level, then etc, then in the etc directory we have a hosts file. So we're gonna type in nano editor and then etc hosts, and that brings up this file, and you'll see that there's a bunch of entries here, an IP address followed by an entry. Okay, and you'll notice that this IP address is the same across the board. Well, that's because that is the local host, right? And we are hosting all of these sites on the same server. So the local host IP address is going to be the same for all of these entries. It's going to be the same for localhost as well as for my team project entries, as well as, now let's add in our latest and greatest, 127.0.0.1 space mysalonsolutions.com, and I'll put one more with the www in front of it, 127.0.0.1 www.mysalonsolutions.com, and I'm going to Control X, and it's going to ask, do I want to save? I'm going to type Y to save it, and it's going to say what kind of, what's the file name that you want to write. I'm not going to change anything. I want it to save as etc/hosts, so I'm going to hit enter, and that is now saved. And how do I know that's now saved? I can nano back into it and verify that. And sure enough, there it is. It's saved in there. So I'm gonna Control X, exit out. And now we're gonna go into where our Tomcat directory is, and we're gonna start examining our file structure, and we've got to modify some files in there as well. So we modified our host file just now, and now we're going to jump into server XML, and that can be found at this address right here. So let's cd to that, change directory down to that, and ls-al, let's show all files. We are going to jump into the server XML file, okay? So here we go. We're going to go nano server.xml. And there's a few things we want to change in here. So right now, if you're running Tomcat, the default setting for Tomcat, the default port is 8080. And that's all well and good, except whenever you want to go to a link off of Tomcat in that kind of configuration, you have to enter the port number into your URL. So you'd have to type like localhost :8080 / whatever the name of your project is. But what we're trying to do here is eliminate the need for a user to have to enter a port number, because your users more than likely are not going to know what port you want them to put into their address bar. So let's make it so that they don't have to do that. So we're going to scroll down here, and you'll notice if you go, hopefully all the following things match. You're going to want to make sure that your service name, Catalina, is consistent all the way down, like through your engine and stuff. We'll get to that in a sec. But your connector port probably looks a little something like that. And what you want to do is just drop it down to port 80. Port 80 is a public-facing port. And the nice thing about port 80 is that it allows traffic to it without requiring that the port number be specified. I should also mention, too, by the way, that your EC2 instance should be configured. There's, security groups in your EC2 instance that should allow traffic from anywhere to port 80. So just make sure that for your Elastic IP, you define your security groups with that in mind. Allow traffic from anywhere to that Elastic IP for port 80. At any rate, let's go back to where we were. So we've got port 80 defined instead of port 8080. The rest of that should default to correct values. We're going to keep scrolling down. We're going to leave a bunch of this stuff commented out. And now we get down to our engine name is Catalina. That's great. Our default host is localhost. That's great. And now we get down to our first host entry. Okay. And name of localhost, debug equals 0. App base should be our web apps folder, and we'll look at that in just a second. And when we deploy web apps to that web app folder, do we want it to unpack the WAR files? Yes, true. And do we want it to auto deploy? Yes, true. Great. So that shouldn't require changing much, if anything. And then you've got a valve that talks about logging. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't know exactly what is happening here, but I know that it's very helpful. I believe it's just determining what it should log when it's creating log entries. And because we've got some regex here that's being defined at any rate, or that's not regex, that's something else, I think. But anyway, like I said, I am not an expert, but I have done a lot of playing around in here today to get to this point, and so I'm excited to share with you a strategy that works. So below, we've got our closing host tag, so that localhost now is that value is closed. We have a closing host tag right here. And then we're going to have our first virtual host defined. And that was, for me, that was my team project, freewayforecast.com. So, I have these values in here. And then I also have another one, freewayforecast.com, which is pointing to the same directory. But what you'll notice here is that our app base is different from above. Above, we have our regular web apps folder. When we set up a virtual host, if we're going to direct traffic properly, it's much, much simpler to define our own dedicated web apps folder for each application that we're trying to run off of this server. Because otherwise, if we're putting all of the WAR files alongside each other in the same web apps folder, it gets more complicated to tell the server which application needs to be served when the user is making a request. So by creating these dedicated web app folders, we are going to eliminate some headache. So you'll notice I have the full path. I've got, from root level, opt/Tomcat/ and then I created a Freeway Forecasts web app directory. And I'm going to do the same thing in just a moment with Salon Solutions. So I want to create an entry, a host entry for Salon Solutions. I actually took the liberty of typing that out earlier. So I'm going to, we changed the port from 8080 to 80, and now we're going to add in our second virtual host to be this other web app. And I'm going to add it down here after my closing host tag, but before my closing engine tag. And I'm going to paste it in and see if it looks like it went. And I want to make sure my indentation is correct. I must have had this entered in as rich text earlier. And you'll notice that the entries that ought to be pink are not pink, because I don't think the same quote marks were being used in my text editor. Okay, so as I suspected, when I copy pasted from my text editor here, these quote marks are not the same kind of, it's not the same ASCII quote mark that is used inside of the Nano text editor. So I had to go back through and just adjust all of these little quote marks so that the coloration would match. So if you are seeing all green text, that is not what you want. You want to make sure that you've, I don't know what your default color scheme is, but mine is, blue for the tag names and green for the keys and pink for the values. So just FYI, and make sure, you've got the right kind of quote marks or double quotes around them. So as I mentioned, we are going to be setting up this new directory so that our Salon Solutions web app is no longer hosted in the regular web apps folder. It's no longer going to be here. Instead, we're going to make its own dedicated directory, and that's where the WAR file is going to go. And notice that our doc base, where all of the documents for the web app, for the Salon Solutions web app are going to go, is going to go in the root directory, the root of the Salon Solutions web app directory. So again, unpack wars is true, auto deploy is true, reloadable is true. All of those things would be very helpful. So please just take an extra moment and make sure that you have that set. Also notice that I've got mysalonsolutions.com as my host name, and then I added an alias value with the www.mysalonsolutions.com. Okay, so I am going to Control X out of this and Y to save, and Enter to save it as the current file value, which is what I want. I want to continue saving this as server.xml. Okay, great. So that's saved. My server.xml is configured for this new virtual host. Now, as well as it's configured to run on port 80 instead of on port 8080. Now we want to make sure that Salon Solutions has its own web app folder, and we're going to remove it from the common web apps directory. So let's go take a look at that. What am I talking about exactly? Let me back up. I don't want to be in the conf folder anymore. I'm going to back up. And why don't I just clear this stuff? Okay, so now I'm in the Tomcat directory, and I'm going to show all files. And let's see, we have my team. You can see my team project has my Freeway Forecast web app, its own dedicated web app directory. And then there's the common web apps directory. Let's take a look at our Freeway Forecast web app directory for just a second. We're going to cd into that. And let's show all files in there. So you'll notice there is a WAR file, but it's not called Freeway Forecasts. It's called root. It is the Freeway Forecasts WAR file, but we need to rename it root so that it deploys at the root level of this web app directory, this dedicated web app directory. And that is precisely what this is. So when we put the WAR file in, and it explodes the WAR file, so to speak, that exploded directory is this. So this is Freeway Forecasts, but we're going to call it root because that's where we want it to deploy, if that makes sense. And also notice that we have a manager and a host manager app in here as well. And we're just going to basically copy all of this stuff from our web apps, our main web apps, common web apps directory. So let me get out of my team project dedicated web app directory. I'm going to go up a level here, and I'm going to clear, and we'll show all files again in the Tomcat directory. Let's take a look at our web apps directory now. We'll cd into that, and we'll show all files in there. And you'll notice that we have a root folder, and in that root folder is going to be, if you want to see what's in there, let's cd into that. So that's the stuff that Tomcat uses for its manager application. You know, there's lots of Tomcat specific images in here, and it's not going to be particularly useful for our purposes at this very moment. But so let me back up out of that. And I'm going to clear again. And what we want to do is basically, you can see that in our common web apps directory right now, my Salon Solutions WAR file and Salon Solutions directory are available. And basically, as we discussed a little earlier, what that means is when I go to my EC2 instance running at that particular static IP address, I'm going to copy that. And then I go / Salon Solutions. It is now going to look in that common web apps folder and take me to the deployed version of the Salon Solutions WAR file, which is this Salon Solutions directory right here inside of the common web apps directory. Hoping that's making sense. So that takes me to here, okay? And notice how my IP address is this. All right, so we're gonna take the leap now. Here we go. We're gonna do it. What I want to do, it's gonna be a copy operation. So I'm gonna go again. I'm still at I'm a root user here still. So what I'm gonna do is cp, and then I want to copy the entire web apps directory. I'm actually gonna back out of the web apps directory. I don't think I have to necessarily, but I'm just going to show you that I want to create a dedicated web app folder for Salon Solutions that has all of the files that are already in this web apps folder, but I want to create it alongside the rest of these, okay? So here we go. It's cp -r for recursive, and F, you know, it's referring to a directory. So it's this copy cp recursive function and web apps. So we are copying the web apps folder and we are going to name it. Boy, what did I name it? I think I named it in the server XML file. I named it Salon Solutions Web App. And it looks like it went through. Let's see if that happened. Hey, what do you know? Now we have a Salon Solutions Web App directory. That's exciting. So let's take a look inside there. Okay, it looks like we have our WAR file, which is what we want, and we have our exploded directory of that WAR file, but as well as a manager app and a host manager app. What I want to have happen though is we, as you'll notice earlier, we had to rename these to root, right? So that they deploy at the root level of this directory. So what I want to do, I could just do my copy function again. So I'm just going to go cp r salonsolutions.war root.war. And now let's look. Okay, and we have a root.war file, which is awesome. I am going to remove our Salon Solutions file. And did that work? Yes, it did. Now I want to, well, I could leave the Salon Solutions directory in there and just rename it, or I could remove it all together and then it'll deploy fresh when I restart Tomcat. I'm gonna, let's see, I'm probably just gonna rename it for now. So let's, again, I'm just gonna copy -rf, since it's a directory, Salon Solutions, and I'm gonna name it root. Oh, I wonder, you know what, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to remove, because I already had a root directory in there, I'm going to remove root. Okay, there's no root in there. Now I'm going to copy it again. Solutions directory, cp rf salon solutions, and we're going to call it the root directory. Now, if you're still with me here, okay, I have a root directory now that's renamed. It's identical to Salon Solutions, and I'll prove it to you. Let's go into Salon Solutions. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff. We got our search JSP, our login JSP, blah, 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 blah. And let's back out of that. And now let's cd into our root directory. And we're seeing all of the same stuff. So we're good there. I can delete the Salon Solutions directory now. So rm-rf Salon Solutions. That's out of there now, as you can see. So we've got basically the same files that were in there to begin with, salonsolutions.war and Salon Solutions directory, both renamed to root, respectively, okay? As well as a manager app and a host manager app, all right? So that's excellent. We're just gonna clear. We're gonna back out of our dedicated directory here. I wanna do a couple things before we're done. We're getting close to being done. So thanks for hanging tough here. We need to go into our regular web apps folder now. So let's go into there. And you'll see that we still have our Salon Solutions.war file and directory. Those need to come out of there now because we want the server to recognize that, oh, you know, in server XML, it knows when it gets a request from mysalonsolutions.com, it needs to route to this dedicated web app directory, not to the WAR file and the exploded WAR file directory that's in the common web apps folder. So we got to pull those out of there. So again, very similar operation. We're gonna remove salonsolutions.war. Oops, I didn't need the hyphen there. Okay, and that worked, right? And now we'll just take the directory out, rm-rf, since it's a directory, Salon Solutions And did that work? Yes, it did. Okay, and clear. Now, I'm just going to show all my files here still in my, oops, yeah, that's my web apps folder. Let's back out of that. And what are the files in my Tomcat folder now? Okay, so I've got my team project dedicated web app, my indie project dedicated web app, and I want to just double check. Did I spell that correctly in my server XML? I'm pretty sure I did, but let's just verify that one more time. So I'm going to go into my conf directory, and again, I want to go into my server XML. So nano server.xml, and I'm just going to scroll down, and sure enough, Salon Solutions web app. That with, kind of camel case, but A is not capitalized. So I believe that is exactly how I spelled it. So we're good. All right. So that's exciting. We are, yeah, that is spelled correctly. Great. So we've got everything in our EC2 instance set to do what we needed to do in theory. We cleared out the war file and the exploded war directory from the common web apps folder. We gave that Salon Solutions web app its own dedicated web app directory and renamed the war file and the exploded war file directory to root, and also made sure that there's a manager and a host manager app inside of that dedicated web app folder. And now let's see where we are in our checklist here. Okay, we've gotten through step 7, except we were not able to get step 2 done earlier. So let's see if we can accomplish this now. Create hosted zone and point the A record and the www alias record to the elastic IP address. And also, if we're not using Amazon Route 53 for domain acquisition, then make sure that the other registrar, whoever that is, GoDaddy or whomever, has the DNS info. So let's take a look at what that means. So I'm just going to take note again of my elastic IP address. I'm copying that, and I'm going to go back into Route 53, and hey, sure enough, it looks like that pending request for mysalonsolutions.com has completed successfully, and I'm just going to click on that. And we've got some DNS information here, which is great. If you did go through GoDaddy or some other registrar to acquire your domain name, that registrar is going to need to know this DNS information. And there are a lot of videos online showing you how to transfer DNS records to your domain in your registrar. So feel free to YouTube that if you need to. We need to make sure that the A record and the www alias record are accounted for. So we're going to go up to create record set. Also, if you were coming to Route 53 here with a domain in hand, you could have just created your own hosted zone and it would have given you something similar to this page. Okay, and we don't want to do a subdomain or anything. We want it to just be plain old mysalonsolutions.com. The type is A. It's an A record. So I'm just going to, it's not a C name or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it as an A record. And it's not an alias. And what is the value for it? I want it to be my AWS elastic IP address. So that's that. So I paste that in there and leave everything else just as it is. And I'm going to hit create. Okay, A record is done, and now I've got to do the www. So let's do create record set, and I'm going to go www, and again, it's an A record. And is it an alias? Yes, it is. Okay, and the target name is going to be, when we scroll down here, mysalonsolutions.com. Okay, and we're going to hit create. And that is in there. So we've got www.mysalonsolutions.com as well as our mysalonsolutions.com. So boom, both of them are pointing at, this one's pointing at the EC2 elastic IP address, and this one is pointing at this one, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's done. And remember, we had configured our hosts to recognize that, hey, once a request is coming in for mysalonsolutions.com, that's going to route over to our dedicated web apps folder. So in theory, I want to manage your expectations right now. In theory, this should work, but sometimes it takes a number of hours to propagate. As you saw that message earlier, it could take up to 3 days in some cases for you to see the results that you're looking for. So I can't guarantee that this is going to work, but why don't we give it a try? Let's just see what happens. So here's our old address, and I'm just going to try to bring up mysalonsolutions.com. Okay, well, I'm getting my I'm getting my manager app, which is something, and that's probably because I haven't I didn't undeploy and redeploy. So I'm hoping this actually goes away momentarily. I'm gonna transition now to the next step, and I think that's gonna help solve my issue. So of course I was, working with an already deployed version of the application and the manager app that was recognizing that application. So it's not defaulting yet to the root of this custom domain, but it will shortly, I think. I just need to do a couple things. Every time Tomcat shuts down and then starts back up, it should re-explode the existing WAR files. And in fact, let's go into our Salon Solutions web app, and I might just totally remove that root directory out of there because I don't trust it. Okay, so now we only have the WAR file, and we want to explode that WAR file after we start up. We're going to shut down Tomcat, we're going to start it back up, and we're going to see if that fixes this issue. Okay, so I'm going to go into bin, cd bin, and I'm going to run my shutdown command .sh and give it a second, and now I'm going to run startup. Startup.sh. Okay, and did that solve our issue? It's not finding the server. Let me try shutting this down again and turning it turn it off, turn it back on, right? Cycle the power. Let's see. Shutdown.sh. There we go. That looks more like an appropriate shutdown execution. And now startup.sh. Okay. In theory now, this should work. So mysalonsolutions.com. What happens? Hey, there we are. There's my really crummy, basic looking JSP, which will take me to a page to enter my username and password. Notice this is on mysalonsolutions.com. That's no longer on my EC2 IP address /Salon Solutions. And in fact, if I refresh this, what do you think is going to happen? Hopefully we get a 404 error because there's no longer a Salon Solutions directory in the common web apps folder, which this is referencing. Hey, success, 404. Awesome. So yeah, this, mysalonsolutions.com, is where to find my app from here on out. Okay, so if you were having struggles with that, similar to what I was just experiencing, try turning it off, turning it back on. Shut down Tomcat, start it back up. You might need to do it a couple times in order for it to take, but in theory that should work. And also take that directory, that root directory, out of there and have Tomcat re-explode it. So like what I mean is, let's go back into our Salon Solutions web app. And you'll notice, hey, I had deleted this a moment ago and now it's back because the moment I started Tomcat back up again, it referenced this WAR file and exploded it out into this directory, this beautiful directory here. Okay, so if those contents are already there, sometimes it gets a little funky. In theory, it shouldn't be a problem. It'll just take this WAR file and redeploy it, and whatever's here will no longer be there. But sometimes for good measure, I just like to pull that out of there and have it start fresh. So, okay, last step. If you watched my other video about CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, you probably have a pipeline set up inside of GitHub Actions that is building your, every time you push to GitHub, it is building your Maven project according to your POM XML. And then it is deploying the WAR file that build creates through a curl command over to your EC2 instance. But remember, we have made some changes now to how Tomcat is configured. The port is no longer 8080, it is port 80. And also, I noticed a little bit of weirdness with this an update. Oh, also we renamed the path. So you're still going to send your WAR file over there, but we're going to call it root.war. We're not going to call it the name of your project anymore. And also this an update equals true. For some reason on port 8080, I wasn't having any kind of an issue with this. It would just save the new WAR file and auto redeploy it, re-explode it into that exploded directory like we were just looking at a moment ago. For some reason on port 80 and in this new root configuration in this dedicated web app folder, I'm having issues with that. So I actually had to add a second curl command to take place after I save the new WAR file. So here I save the new WAR file and then I reload Tomcat. This video right now is assuming that you watched that other video that I'm referring to about CI/CD and that you configured your tomcat-users.xml with appropriate roles for your administrator. So, you know, this is using the text version of the manager application to run a remote script. So please make sure that you are, you have those permissions assigned, those roles assigned to whatever Tomcat manager, Tomcat user is your admin. And then, yeah, we're running this reload command at the path of root, root of the dedicated web app folder of that particular application, and also on port 80. So we need to make some updates to our CI/CD pipeline so that everything continues to update properly. So I'm going to jump over to GitHub, go over to my indie project repository, Salon Solutions, and we're going to take a look at my GitHub Actions. And we're going to take a look at my workflow file. And I got to make some adjustments. So I'm going to click on this pencil. And if you'll recall from the CI/CD video, you know, we are on every push to my master branch, I am then checking out the latest version of my code from this repository and using JDK 11 to build with Maven according to the specifications in the POM XML. And then I'm running this deploy to Tomcat command, curl command, using GitHub secrets. I think in the other video I said like Tomcat secrets. I'm sorry. I meant GitHub secrets. So we're accessing that with secrets.tomcat username Salon Solutions, secrets.tomcat password Salon Solutions, and then I even had my WAR file path as a secret, and I even had my indie repo address as a secret. Now some of this stuff has to change because it's no longer valid. So I had pointed out here that I think you know, the war file path is still going to be the same, but this part has to change. I don't want to be deploying to my EC2 instance directly anymore because it's supposed to route through my URL. Okay, so let's change that. We are going to change this parameter. We're not actually deploying to our EC2 instance directly anymore. We're actually, like in my team project here, I actually had to change that to freewayforecast.com. So we're going to do it for my salonsolutions.com port 80. And then we're going to connect to the manager app, the text version of the manager app. We're going to deploy, and then we're going to deploy to the root of that dedicated web app directory, and we're going to call it root.war, and update equals true. So I got to go back in and adjust my secrets, and I'm going to get my secrets going again here. What did I call these things? I called that my Amazon EC2 Indie repo address. Amazon EC2 Indie repo address. And it's this. It's my new custom domain name, port 80, with all the other things that we've talked about. Add secret. Okay, and same with my reload address. So let's make sure that that gets changed as well. So it's not this guy. Again, it's mysalonsolutions.com. And again, with the single quotes, be very careful with these single quotes. My rich text editor is kind of goofy. And I'm gonna Amazon EC2 Indie repo reload address. We're gonna change that. Well, we're gonna keep it the same, but we're gonna change it. So remove it. I can't just go in and edit it. I have to remove it and add it back in. Amazon EC2 Indie repo. What did I say? Reload address? Reload underscore address. Reload underscore address. And let's load that in. And it's, again, make sure you got your 2 forward slashes in there. mysalonsolutions.com, port 80, manager. Okay, all of that should be correct. Okay, so that's updated accordingly. And now I can start a fresh commit here. And in theory, we should see it in the right spot this time. So adds updated mysalonsolutions.com path to Tomcat deploy and Tomcat reload commands. And it can't commit anything because none of that actually changed. Just my secrets changed. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to make one more change in IntelliJ and have it do something. Okay, so welcome to My Salon Solutions. Your styling authority. All right, sure, fine. Okay, get pull, get status. How about I add the changes? Get commit m adds h2 your styling authority message to index.jsp for CI CD updated testing purposes. with custom domain name. Git push. Let's watch it build, friends. And while that's building, I'm going to adjust my instructions here. New port information, port 80, accordingly with new custom domain name instead of EC2 IP address and port 80 information. Okay, so that should help everybody. And that looks like it worked. And in theory, if I go to salonsolutions.com, right, or mysalonsolutions.com, there are my H1 and H2 tags. So my CI/CD pipeline is intact again. It is now working properly as it should. Okay, so I hope that has helped. I hope that you have fun acquiring some of your own custom domains and getting your apps, getting those domains pointing to the cool apps that you're building and deploying to your AWS EC2 instances, because it really would be fun to brand these things the way that we want for public viewing, and give our would-be users a pithy custom domain name to remember, rather than, hey, yeah, you got to log into IP address this, and this, and here's the port number, and yada, yada, yada. So hopefully that kind of gives you the ability to do some creative expressions going forward. Have fun, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.